Captain Darius was a human trader who lived his life on the edge of danger. He traveled to the far corners of the galaxy, making trades with aliens, smugglers, and criminals. On one such trip, he arrived at a dark and dusty planet called Orivok. The place was known for its black markets, where anything could be bought or sold. Even life itself. Darius entered a massive hall where traders gathered. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of metal. Aliens of every shape and size filled the room, their eyes watching every deal. Darius came to trade weapons, but he had little to offer this time. An alien warlord named Galactic stood behind. A table of strange items. He was large, with scales covering his body and eyes that glowed red. Darius tried to bargain with him. But Galactic wasn't interested in his weapons. Instead, the warlord smiled with sharp teeth and pointed to a small cage beside him. Inside the cage sat a young alien girl, her skin a pale silver with glowing blue patterns on her arms. Her hair was long, dark, and messy. Covering part of her face, she looked weak, bruised, and chained by her wrists and ankles. Galactic laughed. "Take her instead, human. She's a slave." "Worthless to me, but might be of some use to you." Darius stared at the girl. Something about her didn't feel right. She didn't look like the other slaves he had seen before. She sat straight, her eyes burning with pride despite her chains. Most slaves begged or cried, but this one stared back at Darius with defiance. "Why is she in that cage?" Darius asked. Galactic shrugged. "She was trouble. Refused to obey. Bit one of my guards. She's not worth feeding." The aliens around them laughed, enjoying the joke. Some whispered. Some even chuckled under their breath, as if they knew. A secret Darius felt something twist in his gut. He wasn't the kind to buy slaves. But leaving her here didn't feel right. He had seen too many cruel things in the galaxy. But her eyes, they were not the eyes of a slave. "Fine," Darius said, "I'll take her." Galactic laughed louder. "She's yours, human. And she'll bring you misery with that." Galactic's men unlocked the cage and tossed the girl at Darius's feet. She fell but quickly stood up. Her head held high. She didn't say thank you. She didn't say anything at all. Darius led her back to his ship, the Iron Raven. As they walked through the crowded market, the girl kept her gaze forward. Darius noticed others staring, whispering, laughing to themselves. He wondered if he had just made a mistake. Once aboard the ship, Darius ordered his crew to remove her chains. His crew, a mix of humans and aliens, looked at the girl with suspicion. "Captain, this is a bad idea," his pilot said. "We don't know who she is or what trouble she brings." Darius nodded, but he wasn't one to abandon someone in the medical room. The girl sat silently while the medic cleaned her wounds. Darius tried to ask her name, but she stayed quiet. He offered her water, food, but she refused. Her eyes never left his, sharp and unyielding. "Who are you?" Darius asked again. "Why were they so eager to give you away?" The girl finally spoke, her voice cold and clear. "You will regret taking me, human." Darius raised an eyebrow. "Is that a threat?" She shook her head, a warning. That night, Darius sat in his cabin, thinking. He had made many deals before, but this one felt different. Why did the warlord laugh? Why did everyone in that market watch them so closely? And why did this girl act more like a queen than a slave? Suddenly, his communicator beeped. It was his security officer, Captain. "We've picked up a signal someone is tracking us." Darius frowned. "Who?" "We don't know yet, but they started after we left the market." Darius looked at the closed door to the girl's room. Who was she? What secret was she hiding? And what had Darius just brought aboard his ship? Outside, the stars moved silently, but Darius felt the storm was just beginning. Inside her room, the girl sat in the dark. She whispered to herself, "Fools. They think I'm powerless." Her eyes glowed faintly blue in the darkness, and deep within, she knew. Her captors had made one mistake. They let her live. The girl sat quietly in the small chamber of the Iron Raven. The lights were dim, the walls cold, but she didn't shiver. She simply stared at the door, as if waiting for someone to walk in. She didn't eat, didn't drink, and barely moved. Captain Darius stood on the other side of the door, unsure what to do. Its instinct screamed that this was no ordinary slave. His crew wanted her gone, saying she was cursed or dangerous, but Darius wasn't the type to abandon someone because of fear. Finally, Darius entered the room, carrying a tray of food and water. The girl looked up but didn't say a word. "I brought you something to eat," Darius said, placing the tray on. A small table, she stayed seated, her eyes sharp, studying him like a puzzle. "Why won't you eat?" Darius asked, his voice softer. Still, she said nothing, her expression unreadable. "I'm not your enemy," he continued. "I didn't buy you to harm you." At those words, the girl chuckled, cold and bitter. "You think you bought me?" she said, her voice calm but laced with pride. Darius tilted his head. "Did I not? You were a payment, after all." She shook her head slowly. "Fools, all of you." "You think chains define worth?" Darius frowned. "Then who are you really?" For a long moment, the girl was silent, her gaze locked on his. Then she spoke, her voice steady. "I am Valara, daughter of the Zinthri throne." The words meant nothing to Darius at first, but when she saw his blank face, she narrowed her eyes. "You don't know who the Zinthori are, do you?" she asked, her tone almost disappointed. Darius shrugged. "I've heard stories. A powerful empire, but I stay away from politics." Valara leaned back against the wall, her eyes distant. "My people are rulers of 12 systems, the richest. Bloodlines in this side of the galaxy." She paused, her hands resting in her lap. "I was next in line to the throne, until my own family betrayed me." Darius crossed his arms, listening carefully. "Why would they betray a princess?" he asked. Valara's face hardened. "Because I wanted change. I spoke of equality, of ending slavery." She looked away, her voice cold for them. "That was weakness, so they sold me off to our enemies to silence me." Darius was stunned, his mind racing. He hadn't saved a slave, he had saved a political threat. A royal who was dangerous to her own kind. If that's true, why didn't you tell Galactic who you were? Darius asked. Valara smiled faintly, but there was no joy in it. "I did. They laughed and chained me tighter. They knew my name but believed no one would dare rescue me." Her eyes met his, until you, Darius, sat on a nearby chair, running. A hand through his hair. "Then why warn me that I'll regret it?" he asked. "Because you will," Valara said without hesitation. "My enemies will not stop. They'll hunt you, your ship, your crew, until I'm dead, outside the chamber." The ship's alarms buzzed softly. The sensors picked up a distant, shadowy ship tracking them from light years away. Darius knew it wasn't coincidence. Valera's presence was a beacon, and now they were all marked. "Then help me," Darius said. "Tell me who's chasing us. Help me fight back," Valara tilted her head, intrigued. "You're not afraid?" she asked. Darius smiled faintly. "Fear never kept me alive. Only action did." For the first time, Valara's stern face softened. She nodded slowly. "Very well, human. If you truly wish to help, then you must know who hunts us." She stood up, her posture regal despite her torn clothes. "They are called the Dravok Syndicate, assassins and hunters loyal to my uncle." "The one who stole my throne?" Darius listened carefully, every word a piece of a deadly puzzle. "If they catch us, they won't kill you quickly," she warned. "But if we escape, I can offer you something more valuable than any trade you've ever made." Darius chuckled. "What's that? A royal favor?" Valera's lips curved into a sly smile. "No, human. I can offer you an empire." Darius blinked, realizing the gravity of her words. A poor trade had just become a war, a chance at power or death. Suddenly, the ships. Intercom buzzed. "Captain, the shadow ship is gaining on us. What are your orders?" Darius looked at Valara, then at the door. His life had changed the moment he accepted her, and now there was no turning back. "Prepare the engines." "Set a course for the outer rim," Darius ordered. Then he glanced back at Valara. "Princess, let's see if you're worth the trouble." Valara smiled. "You'll see, Captain. You'll see." The Iron Raven sped through deep space, its engines burning hot. Captain Darius stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the stars ahead. Behind him, Valara watched silently. her presence felt by every crew member. They all knew now she wasn't just a slave, but a princess of a mighty empire. But what Darius didn't know was how deep her story went. Why would a royal like Valara end up in chains on a filthy planet? Why did her own family want her gone? These questions buzzed in his mind like a relentless storm. He turned to face her. "You told me who you are, but not why you're really being hunted." Valara's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. She crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. "Because I know secrets, Captain. Secrets that could destroy my entire bloodline." Darius raised an eyebrow. "What kind of secrets?" Valara stepped closer, her voice low. "The Zinthari Empire stands on wealth, power, and fear," she said, "but beneath it lies something darker, something ancient." She paused, making sure the crew wasn't listening too closely. "My family made a pact centuries ago with beings not of this galaxy." Darius frowned. "You mean aliens?" Valara shook her head. "Worse, entities that exist between realities, feeding on life, offering power in exchange for blood." Darius felt a chill down his spine. "So your family feeds them?" he asked. Valara nodded. "Every few decades, they offer thousands of lives. Entire colonies wiped out in silence." Her voice shook slightly. "I discovered this when I was a child, and I swore to stop it." She looked away, her fists clenched. "I spoke out, tried to rally others, but they branded me a traitor, my own uncle. Lord Malvac betrayed me, staged my kidnapping, and sold me to our enemies." Darius listened, his mind struggling to process her words. "So, this isn't just about a throne," he said quietly. Valara turned to him, her eyes fierce. "No, Captain. It's about stopping a horror that no one in the galaxy knows about. If I die, no one else will ever know, and the sacrifices will continue." Darius paced the room, feeling the weight of her truth. "You want me to help you fight against your family, your empire, and these entities?" Valara smiled faintly. "Yes, but I didn't expect you to agree." She stepped closer. "You're just a traitor after all." Darius stopped pacing and looked her in the eyes. "I might be just a traitor, but I've seen enough darkness in this galaxy. I can't ignore this, not when I'm already marked." Valara's gaze softened, perhaps for the first time. "Then you have my gratitude, Captain," she said softly. "But helping me means becoming a target of gods and monsters." Before Darius could respond, the ship's alarms blared. The shadow ship was back. But it wasn't alone, Captain. His pilot shouted, "2 more ships have joined the pursuit." Darius cursed under his breath. "They really want you dead," he said to Valara. She nodded, her expression serious. "Let me help," she said. "I know codes, frequencies, that can confuse their scanners." Darius hesitated, then gestured her to the console. "Show us then, Princess." Valara's fingers danced across the controls with precision. Within moments, the pursuing ship's signals began to distort. "We've blinded them, but not for long," she warned. Darius ordered full speed, steering the Iron Raven into an asteroid field. "If we can hide here, we'll get some breathing room." Valara watched him work, impressed by his calm under pressure. "You're not like the others," she said quietly. Darius chuckled. "I've survived this long by being unpredictable." She smiled. "Good, because predictable people are already dead." As the ship weaved between massive rocks, the crew worked together, lasers fired. But the Iron Raven was swift. Finally, they lost their pursuers, the shadow ships vanishing into the void. The crew cheered, but Darius knew it wasn't over. In the quiet that followed, Darius turned to Valara. "Tell me everything." "Princess," he said, "if I'm in this, I want the full truth." Valara took a deep breath, her face serious. "Very well, Captain. I'll tell you about the Shadow Pact, about my uncle, and about the darkness feeding on our worlds." The voice was heavy, carrying the weight of countless dead. "And if we don't stop them, this galaxy won't survive the next century." Darius nodded slowly. "Then we better start planning."
Ow.
Princess, outside, the stars continued their endless dance. But in the shadows, enemies whispered. They knew the princess still lived, and now a human captain stood by her side. The war for truth had just begun, and no one was ready for what was coming. The Iron Raven drifted quietly within the cover of the asteroid field. The engines hummed low, barely making a sound as the crew worked in tense silence. Captain Darius stood on the bridge, staring at the radar screen. No enemy ships appeared, but he knew they weren't safe yet. Valara stood beside him, her arms crossed, her gaze sharp. "They'll come again," she said, her voice cold. "They won't stop until I'm dead." Darius nodded slowly. "Then we don't wait here to be hunted. We make a plan," he said. "But first, we need to know who's leading the hunt." Valara's eyes darkened. "There's only one person who would be so relentless," she whispered. "My uncle, Lord Malvac. The one who sits on the throne that should have been mine. He sent his best hunters after us, the Revenants." Darius raised an eyebrow. "Revenants? Never heard of them." Valara smiled grimly. "They're assassins trained to kill without mercy, enhanced by forbidden science." She looked straight at Darius. "If they find us, they won't stop until every one of you is dead, and I am." Dragged back in chains, Darius cracked his knuckles, a confident smirk on his face. "Then we'll make sure they don't find us easily." Suddenly the radar beeped sharply. The pilot turned, eyes wide. "Captain, multiple ships incoming. They just warped into the sector." Darius's smirk faded, replaced by a cold stare. "How many?" he asked. "3 ships, heavily armed, closing fast," the pilot reported. Valara's face went pale. "They found us faster than I thought." Darius gave orders swiftly. "Full power to engines. Take us deeper into the field." The Iron Raven surged forward, weaving between massive asteroids. But the hunters followed, their sleek black ships cutting through space like blades. Lasers fired, flashes of red and blue lighting up the darkness. Asteroids shattered, sending debris spinning wildly. On the bridge, Darius gritted his teeth. "We can't outrun them here," he muttered. Valara stepped forward, her mind racing. "There's a mining station hidden deeper inside this field," she said, "abandoned long ago, but still functional enough to hide us." Darius nodded. "Guide us there, princess." Valara took the navigation controls, her fingers swift and sure. The ship dodged and twisted, barely avoiding blasts. The Revenants stayed close, their weapons relentless. But Valara's knowledge of the field gave them an edge. Minutes later, the station came into view, a giant metallic structure buried in rock, rusty, silent, but still alive with faint power. Darius pushed the engines hard, driving the Iron Raven inside the docking bay. The massive doors slid closed just in time, sealing them inside the hollowed asteroid. Inside the station, darkness ruled. Lights flickered weakly, dust covering every surface. Darius ordered the crew to arm themselves. "This is where we make our stand," he said. Valara looked around, memories flooding back. "I've been here before," she whispered. "This station was once used by the Zinthri to store weapons." Darius smiled. "Then let's see if they left any behind." The crew spread out, searching the abandoned halls. Soon, they found a storage chamber filled with old but powerful weapons. Grenades, pulse rifles, energy shields, everything they needed for a fight. Darius armed his crew, checking every weapon himself. Valara took a sleek energy sword, its blade humming softly. "You know how to use that?" Darius asked with a grin. Valara twirled the sword effortlessly. "I was trained from birth to fight," she replied. "Being royalty doesn't mean being helpless." Then the station shook violently. The Revenants had arrived, breaking through the asteroid shell. Darius's communicator crackled. "They're breaching the outer hull, Captain." "Positions," Darius ordered. "We hold them here." The crew took cover, aiming at the entrances. Valara stood beside Darius, her sword glowing blue. The air grew heavy, as if the darkness itself was watching. Then they came figures in black armor, their eyes burning red. The Revenants moved like shadows, silent and deadly. The battle began, blasters firing, energy swords clashing. Darius fought hard, his aim deadly. But the Revenants were faster, stronger, like machines built to kill. Valara moved through them. Like a storm, her blades slicing through armor, she fought with grace and fury. Every movement precise, she was no longer a princess in chains. She was a warrior reclaiming her pride. Darius watched her fight, impressed and inspired. Still, the revenants kept coming, endless and cold. "Captain," someone shouted, "we can't hold them forever." Valara turned to Darius. "There's a power core deeper inside. If we overload it, we can blow the station." Darius smiled grimly. "A suicide move. Only if we don't escape in time," Valara said. Darius nodded. "Then let's do it together." They fought their way to the core. The battle wasn't over, but they had a plan. And a chance to survive outside, the revenants prepared for the final strike. But inside the heart of the station, a storm was building, and the hunters had no idea the prey was about to bite back. The deeper levels of the abandoned station were colder, darker. Dust hung in the air, disturbed only by the sound of hurried footsteps. Darius led the way, his blaster ready, eyes sharp for any movement. Valara followed close behind, her glowing sword casting a soft blue light in the shadows. They had no time to waste. The revenants were pushing in, relentless and fast. Darius glanced back at Valara, his mind heavy with questions. "Are you sure this core overload will work?" he asked between breaths. Valara nodded, her eyes steady. "I studied these cores as a child. I know how to trigger the failsafe." Her confidence reassured him, but still, the risk was enormous. "Good," Darius said. "Because if this goes wrong, we won't just die. We'll vanish without a trace." Valara smiled faintly. "Then we better make it count." For a moment, Darius caught himself staring at her. She was no longer the weak, chained girl he'd taken from Orvac. Here stood a warrior, a leader in her own right. Despite her tattered clothes and wounds, she carried herself like royalty. It made Darius wonder how such strength could be hidden beneath chains. They reached the core chamber, a massive cylindrical room humming with old energy. Valara approached the main console, brushing away layers of dust. She tapped the panel, her fingers moving, with purpose. "The override codes are old, but they should still work," she whispered. Meanwhile, Darius's communicator buzzed. "Captain, the revenants breached the second level. They'll be on you in minutes." Darius responded, "Hold the line." Buy us time, he looked at Valara. "We've got to move faster," she nodded. Her face focused, but then a shadow moved at the edge of the chamber. A revenant had made it through, its black armor reflecting the dim light without hesitation. Darius fired, his shots precise. The revenant dodged unnaturally fast, closing in with a deadly blade before Darius could react. Valara stepped forward, her sword clashing with the attackers. Their blades sparked a storm of energy and steel. Valara's movements were graceful yet brutal, each strike made with royal precision in mere moments. The revenant lay defeated at her feet. She stood over it, breathing hard, her eyes burning bright. Darius couldn't help but grin. "Remind me not to fight you," Valara smirked. "Smart choice, Captain." With the threat gone, she returned. "To the console, just a few more commands, and the core will start overloading," she said. Darius stood guard, watching the entrance. More revenants would come. That much was certain. As she worked, Valara spoke softly. "Why did you help?" "Me, Darius." "You could have left me in that cage," Darius chuckled lightly. "I don't like seeing pride in chains, not even if it comes from a princess." She paused, then smiled to herself. "No one's ever said that to me before," she admitted. "People either fear me or want to use me." Darius glanced at her, his tone serious. "I'm not here to use you, Valara. I just want the truth, and maybe a little peace in this galaxy." She looked at him then, really looked. In his eyes, she saw no greed, no hidden hunger for power, just a man trying to survive, but unwilling to ignore what was wrong. It was rare, especially among humans and royals alike. The console beeped, and Valara stepped back. "It's done. The core is unstable. We have 15 minutes before the station explodes." Darius tapped his comm. "All crew fall back to the ship." "We're leaving." "Copy that, Captain." His crew answered. They ran together, racing through the dark halls. Behind them, the station trembled, the core's power building dangerously. Revenants appeared again, blocking their path, But Valara and Darius fought side by side, their strikes, in perfect sync, blasters and blades met with deadly precision. Valara's sword flashed with each swing, cutting down foes with elegance. Darius's shots were sharp and lethal, covering her when needed. They trusted each other without words, a bond forged in the heat of battle. Finally, they reached the docking bay, where the Iron Raven waited. The crew had prepared for a fast departure. The engines already humming, Valara and Darius sprinted up the ramp, breathing heavy but alive. "Punch it," Darius shouted, and the ship blasted away from the doomed station. From space, the station glowed, then erupted in a massive explosion. The shockwave spread through the asteroid field, but the Iron Raven escaped just in time. On board, the crew cheered, relieved to be alive. Darius sat back in his chair, looking over at Valara. "Not bad for a traitor and a princess," he said with a grin. Valara smiled genuinely. "Not at all." But both knew the fight wasn't over. They had survived the hunters, but more enemies would come. Stronger and deadlier, yet something had changed between them. A trust built not just by words, but by battle and survival. Darius wasn't just her rescuer anymore. He was her partner in a war that was only beginning. And Valara, once a slave in chains, was now a princess with a human ally who wouldn't let her fall again. Old Station, the Iron Raven, traveled through distant star systems. Always staying off known routes, Captain Darius and his crew remained alert, knowing the revenants would not be the last hunters. But something else had changed on the ship. Valara was no longer hiding in the shadows. She walked the halls with her head high, no longer in rags. Darius had offered her proper clothes, a sharp uniform with the insignia of her royal house. Though the garments were old, she wore them with pride. She was a princess again, not just in title, but in presence. The crew watched her with respect now. They had seen her fight, seen her command codes, and navigate dangers they couldn't imagine. Some still whispered, wondering if having her on board was a curse or a blessing, but no one doubted. Any more that Valara was special, Darius found her one evening on the observation deck. She stood there, staring at the endless sea of stars. He approached quietly, but she spoke without turning. "There was a time when these stars all bowed to my family," she said softly. Darius stood beside her, watching the galaxy swirl in the distance. "Do you miss it?" he asked. Valara smiled faintly. "I miss what it could have been, not what it was. My family ruled with greed and blood, but I wanted to change that." She looked at him then, her eyes sharp yet sad. "They called me weak for wanting peace, for wishing to end the blood sacrifices. That's why they betrayed me. Sold me like common cargo." Darius nodded slowly. "But you're still standing." Valara's gaze hardened. "I don't want the throne to wear a crown," she said. "I want it so I can break the cycle, free the colonies, end the ancient pact with the shadow beings." Darius chuckled lightly. "You don't think small, do you?" She smiled for real this time. A princess shouldn't. Darius leaned against the railing, thoughtful. "If you want your throne back, you'll need allies, an army, people who believe in you." Valara's eyes lit up. "I know where." To start, she explained that there were still Zinthari loyalists who believed in her vision, hidden across the galaxy. These secret followers waited for a sign that the true princess lived, but to reach them, they needed to cross into the Vega Expanse, dangerous region patrolled by mercenaries loyal to her uncle. Darius scratched his chin. "Sounds like a suicide run?" Valara's eyes gleamed with determination. "Only if we go in blind," she said. "But I have contacts, old friends who can help us pass unnoticed." Darius smiled. "Then let's make contact, princess. It's time we stirred the galaxy." Coordinates set, the Iron Raven changed course. Their first destination was a desert moon called Kiris. There, hidden beneath the sands, was a secret enclave of Valara's supporters. As the ship landed, Darius kept a tight watch. Kiris was lawless, ruled by gangs and warlords, but Valara stood tall, her steps confident as she disembarked. They approached a concealed entrance carved into the cliffs. A coded knock, a whispered password, and the stone door slid open. Inside, warriors in silver, and blue armor stood at attention. They gasped when they saw Valara, many dropping to one knee. One elder warrior stepped forward, tears in his eyes. "Princess Valara, we thought you were dead," said, voice trembling. Valara placed a hand on his shoulder. "I was nearly so, but I'm alive, and I've come to reclaim my birthright." The enclave burst into life. Messages were sent, banners raised. The news spread like fire through hidden channels. The lost princess had returned. Meanwhile, Darius watched from the sidelines. He saw something extraordinary. These people truly loved her, not because of fear, but because of hope. Later, in the Enclave's great hall, Valara addressed her followers. "I am not here to rule by blood and terror," she declared. "I am here to free us from the Shadow Pact, to end the centuries of sacrifice, and with me stands a human, Captain Darius, who chose to help when no one else would." The warriors cheered, raising their fists in salute. Darius, though not used to such attention, nodded respectfully. He felt the weight of this moment. He was part of something larger than himself. Rebellion, a revolution, a future. Valara turned to Darius after the assembly. "Thank you, Captain. Without you, I would still be chained." Darius shrugged with a grin. "I like breaking chains." They shared a quiet laugh, but both knew the road ahead was deadly. Because for every ally gained, an enemy would rise. And somewhere deep in space, Lord Malvac watched from his throne. He knew his niece was alive, and now she was gathering strength. With a cold smile, he whispered, "Let her come. I'll bury her hope in blood." The rebellion had begun. Word spread across the galaxy that the lost Princess Valara was alive. Every colony under Zinthri rule, every system oppressed by Lord Malvac's shadow, whispered her name. They called her the Flame Returned. The hope of the broken. On the Iron Raven, the crew prepared for the next phase of their mission. Weapons were polished, maps were studied, allies contacted. But at the heart of it all stood the figures Valara and Darius. A princess with fire in her heart, and a human who had no crown, no power, but a loyalty stronger than steel. Darius stood on the bridge, watching stars blur past the ship's windows. Valara entered quietly, watching him with thoughtful eyes. "You've risked everything for me, Captain," she said softly. "Why? What do you truly want out of this?" Darius chuckled. "I should ask for gold, a fleet, maybe a planet of my own, but the truth is simpler," he continued. "I'm tired of seeing good people crushed under the boots of the powerful. You're the first ruler I've met who actually cares." Valara's gaze softened, a rare warmth in her eyes. "You are a strange man, Darius," she whispered, "in a galaxy full of liars and tyrants." "You chose honor?" Darius shrugged. "Someone has to." Their eyes met, and for a moment no words were needed, but the quiet was short-lived. A transmission flashed on the console, an urgent message. Valara stepped forward, pressing the button. An image flickered to life, a spy from the Vega expanse. "Bloodied but alive, my princess. Lord Malvac prepares for war." The spy gasped. "He's sending the Ebon Armada. Ships black as night, engines of death. He knows you live. He knows the human stands with you." The transmission ended abruptly, replaced by static. Valara stood silent, her fists clenched. "The Ebon Armada is his deadliest force," she explained. 1,000 warships, built to destroy entire civilizations. Darius exhaled slowly. "So it begins." Valara turned to him, her voice firm. "I won't run anymore, Captain," she said. "We gather every ally, every rebel willing to fight. We meet my uncle not with fear but with fire." Darius nodded. "Then let's call the banners." Soon, the Iron Raven became the heart of a growing fleet. Ships of every make and size, smugglers, warriors, former slaves, exiled nobles, all answering Valara's call. From the shadows of the galaxy, the oppressed had risen. Valara stood before them. Her voice projected across every ship. "I am Valara of Zinthri, rightful heir. But more than that, I am one of you. We fight not just for a throne, but for the right to live free of darkness. With Captain Darius beside me, we take back the stars." The fleets roared in response. Engines igniting, weapons primed, they set course for the throne world's in their prime. It was a world of towering cities, endless palaces, and skies guarded by the Ebon Armada, but Valara knew its streets, its secrets, and its weaknesses. The battle began before they even entered orbit. Dark ships emerged from hyperspace. There. Weapons like lightning tearing through the void, but the rebellion did not waver. Darius led the vanguard, his voice steady on comes. Stay tight, protect the princess's command ship, break their lines. Explosions lit the darkness, metal clashed, ships burned. But the rebels pushed forward, driven by the hope Valara had ignited. Meanwhile, Valara led a strike team heading straight for the palace. She moved with purpose, her energy sword-slicing. Through elite guards, Darius was at her side, blaster in hand. Covering every angle, they stormed the throne room, doors crashing open with a thunderous echo, and there, on the high seat, sat Lord Malvac, draped in black and gold. He rose slowly, his smile cold. "Niece," he sneered, "you've brought a human to my halls." How disappointing. Valara stood tall, her voice clear. "This human is worth more than your entire fleet." Uncle Malvac laughed, drawing a blade of dark energy. "Come then, princess," he said. "Claim your throne, if you dare." They clashed, blade against blade, sparks flying, the air thick with power. Valara fought with all her strength, every strike fueled by years of pain and hope. Darius fought alongside her, holding back Malvac's guards. Together, human and princess battled as one, finally with a scream of defiance. Valara struck true, her blade piercing her uncle's heart. Malvac's eyes widened in shock before he crumbled to the floor. Silence fell in the throne room. Valara stood victorious, breathing hard. She turned to Darius, her eyes shining. "It's over," she whispered. "We did it. The throne was hers." But she didn't sit. Instead, she declared the end of the Shadow Pact. It's the end of sacrifices. The people cheered across the galaxy. The princess had returned not as a tyrant, but as a savior, and beside her stood Darius, the human who changed. The fate of an empire they had begun as strangers, a traitor, and a chained girl. But together, they became legends, a human and a princess, who rewrote the destiny of stars.